This space and astronomy iceberg was created by Reddit user Mellow Affinity. If you don't know how an iceberg chart works, the more known information is at the top, and the further you go down the iceberg, the more obscure and unknown the information gets. Due to the massive amount of entries on this chart, this video will be broken up into 2 parts. If there is a particular entry that interests you, feel free to do your own personal research on that topic. The 8 planets. Everybody knows there are other planets in the solar system besides Earth. I'll go through them quickly. Mercury is the closest planet to the sun and is only slightly bigger than the moon. Venus is the second planet from the sun, and due to its very thick clouds, it is the hottest planet in the solar system. Earth is the planet that we all live on and is the only planet known to host life in the universe. Mars is known as the red planet due to the oxidation of the iron on its surface. It has 2 small moons that are named Phobos and Deimos. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. It has many gas rings and a giant storm known as the Great Red Spot. Saturn is the next planet, and it's known for its impressive ring system. Uranus is a light blue featureless planet with an unfortunate name. Neptune is the furthest planet from the sun and has a deep blue color. It has its own equivalent of the Great Red Spot known as the Great Dark Spot. The Sun. The Sun is the star at the center of our solar system. It is a giant sphere of hot plasma, and it's not actually yellow. The blue sky makes the sun look yellow, but from outer space, it is actually completely white. The sun is the most important source of energy for life here on Earth. The Moon. The Moon is Earth's only natural satellite, and it is also the only celestial body besides Earth that humans have ever stepped foot on. It is tidally locked to Earth, so we on Earth only ever see one side of it. The search for life. Humans have long wondered if we are alone in the universe, and as of now, Earth is the only place with confirmed life. There is no air in space. Space is a near perfect vacuum with no air. Air gets thinner and thinner the higher you get in Earth's atmosphere. Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong was the first person to step foot on the moon. He was part of the Apollo 11 mission. He's the one that spoke the famous quote,
"It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind."
Satellite TV. Satellite TV works by relaying a signal from a satellite in space directly to the viewer's location. Killer asteroids. I assume this entry is just talking about how an asteroid is capable of ending life on Earth if the impact is big enough, similar to what happened with the Chicxulub asteroids and the dinosaurs. But with the successful DART mission that redirected an asteroid, this is unlikely to happen. Space Shuttle. The Space Shuttle program ran from 1972 to 2011. 6 space shuttles were built, but only 5 ever flew in space. Each shuttle was partially reusable. They were used to carry satellites to and from orbit. The shuttles would launch like a rocket and then maneuver like a spacecraft in orbit. It would then use its wings and land like an airplane, using the air in the atmosphere to slow down. Yuri Gagarin. Yuri Gagarin was a Soviet cosmonaut and was the first person to ever reach outer space on April 12, 1961 during the Vostok 1 mission. The Big Bang. The Big Bang is the most popular theory for the origin of the universe. It states that the universe exploded from a single point of high density and temperature about 13.8 billion years ago. This theory explains the expansion of the universe that continues even today. Space has no sound. Sound is just vibrations through the air or some other medium. Since there's no air in space, which we already established, the sound vibrations have no way to travel. Pluto is a planet. Pluto used to be considered its own planet until 2006, when the requirements for what is considered a planet changed. The new requirement stated that planets have to have enough mass to be spherical in shape, and the object needs enough mass to clear its orbit of other small objects. Pluto did not qualify for this requirement. It was demoted to a dwarf planet. There was widespread outrage when Pluto's demotion was announced, and some people still consider Pluto a planet. The ISS. The ISS is the abbreviation for the International Space Station. It is the largest space station currently in orbit. The ISS project involves 5 space agencies: the United States NASA, Russia's Roscosmos, Japan's JAXA, Europe's ESA, and Canada's CSA. The force of the docking of spacecraft slowly causes the space station's orbit to decay, and in January of 2031, the ISS will fall to Earth. Constellations. Constellations are a group of stars. Oftentimes, they look like a particular shape or figure. Constellations are also used to map out the sky. Every point in the sky has been mapped out to be in a certain constellation. We choose to go to the moon. This quote comes from a speech by John F. Kennedy during the space race in 1962.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
In the speech, he said that America would land people on the moon by the end of the decade, which was accomplished in 1969 during the Apollo 11 mission. Unfortunately, John F. Kennedy was not alive to see this day. Curiosity rover. The Curiosity rover is a Martian rover that landed on Mars's Gale crater on August 5th, 2012. The goal of the mission was to determine if there is any microbial or microscopic life on the red planet. As of today, no life has been discovered on Mars. The sun will die someday. Every star has a lifespan. When the hydrogen, the sun's fuel, runs out, the sun will die. When it dies, it will grow very large, completely eating Mercury and Venus, and getting so close to Earth to burn it. The sun still has an estimated 5 billion years left, so we don't need to worry. Elon Musk. I'm not quite sure what this entry is referring to, but Elon Musk created SpaceX, which was the first private company to launch a manned mission to space and to dock with the ISS. He also created Tesla Motors and is one of the richest people in the world. Sputnik. Sputnik 1 was the first ever artificial satellite launched into space. It was launched by the Soviet Union on October 4th, 1957. It was about the size of a beach ball and weighed about 180 pounds or 83 kilograms. The original Sputnik program had a total of 5 missions of artificial satellites. Simulation hypothesis. The simulation hypothesis is a theory that the entire universe and all of human experiences are in a simulation. This theory was popularized to widespread audiences with the movie The Matrix. Nick Bostrom has proposed 3 possibilities about the nature of the universe in relation to a simulation. Possibility 1. There are 0 or close to 0 advanced life forms that could run a simulation as advanced as the universe. Possibility 2. There are life forms that are advanced enough to create a simulation as advanced as our universe, but their desire to do so is low or non-existent. And possibility 3, there are advanced life forms and they do desire to create advanced simulations like our universe, in which case it is far more likely that we are in a simulation than we are not. If humans are ever able to create a simulation in which the inhabitants of the simulation are conscious and are unaware that they are in a simulation, this would almost guarantee that we are in a simulation. Exoplanets. Exoplanets, or extrasolar planets, are planets that exist outside of our solar system. The first exoplanets were discovered in 1992, when not 1 but 2 planets were discovered around a pulsar star named PSR B125712. They were named Poltergeist and Phoebetor. Uranus is sideways. The planet Uranus rotates on its side relative to the plane of the solar system. It's hard to see just from the planet, but if you can see its rings, it's a lot more apparent. The speed of light. The speed of light is the universal speed limit. Only massless particles like photons can travel at this speed. Nothing with mass can ever reach the speed of light. The speed of light is the same from all reference frames. This means that the faster an object is traveling, the slower time goes for that object. Age of the universe. The universe is estimated to be 13.7 billion years old. Scientists found that number by measuring the rate of expansion of the universe and extrapolating back to the Big Bang. This is a significant amount of time, and there has been plenty of time for life to develop somewhere in the universe. Black holes. Black holes are extremely dense objects found throughout space. The reason they are black is because the gravity is so strong at the event horizon that not even light can escape it. Black holes are so dense that if you wanted to make Earth a black hole, you'd have to condense it down to the size of a peanut. The first ever picture of a black hole was taken in 2019. This picture shows the supermassive black hole at the center of the elliptical galaxy M87. Since then, we have taken a picture of the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy known as Sagittarius A star. Chris Hadfield. Chris Hadfield is a former astronaut from Canada. He was the very first Canadian to perform extravehicular activity in space, which means he was floating freely in space outside of a ship or station. He has spent a total of 166 days in outer space. Venus backwards. Venus spins the opposite direction of most other planets. This means that if you were on Venus, the sun would rise in the west and set in the east, opposite of Earth. The theory is that long ago, Venus was struck by an object which caused it to turn upside down, resulting in an opposite-looking spin. Michael Collins. Michael Collins was the third astronaut of the Apollo 11 crew. He was the only one of the three to not step foot on the moon. While Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin went down to the lunar surface in the lander module, Michael Collins stayed behind in the command pod, which was in orbit of the moon. When the command pod went behind the moon relative to Earth, Michael Collins was unable to communicate with NASA or the other astronauts. He has been given the name the loneliest man in history. The moon is drifting away. The moon is very slowly drifting away from Earth at a rate of about 3.8 centimeters per year. This is thought to be caused by tidal friction. As the moon pulls on Earth's oceans, it slows the Earth's rotation. The resulting loss of angular momentum is compensated for in the acceleration of the moon, causing it to move further and further away. Center of every galaxy. This entry is probably referring to the fact that nearly every large galaxy has a supermassive black hole in the center, including our own Milky Way. This black hole keeps the galaxy together. Supermassive black holes are a mystery as no one really knows how they form. Satellites orbit Earth. As of 2021, there are 4,550 satellites currently in orbit of Earth. They have a variety of uses. There are 4 different distances a satellite can orbit at: low Earth orbit, medium Earth orbit, highly elliptical orbit, and geostationary orbit. Space shuttle disasters. 2 of the 6 space shuttles built have been destroyed during missions. In 1986, the Challenger space shuttle broke apart 73 seconds into flight. The spacecraft disintegrated and all 7 astronauts on board were killed. The cause was determined to be an O-ring seal failure in the right SRB due to cold weather and wind shears. In 2003, the Columbia space shuttle burned up and disintegrated while re-entering Earth's atmosphere. All 7 astronauts on board were killed. The cause of this disaster was determined to be damage to the left wing's edge by debris from an external tank during launch. Apollo 13. Apollo 13 was the 3rd mission planned to land on the moon and return. 2 days into the mission, an oxygen tank in the service module failed. The crew instead took a voyage around the moon and returned safely to Earth. This mission has been turned into a famous movie starring Tom Hanks. Laika. Laika was a dog from Moscow who was launched into space by the Soviet Union. She became the first living thing to orbit the Earth. She was given only 1 meal and 7 hours of oxygen before launch. She died in low Earth orbit. After orbiting the Earth over 2,000 times, Sputnik 2's orbit decayed enough and it fell back to Earth with Laika still inside. The tyranny of the rocket equation. This is the equation used to calculate how massive of a payload a rocket can carry. There's a point where you cannot add any more mass to a rocket because you would need more fuel, and that adds extra mass too. So there's a point where no matter how much fuel you have, the rocket cannot take off. Historic supernovae. There have been 7 supernovae visible from Earth with the naked eye throughout recorded history. Some of them were even bright enough to be visible during the day. Unfortunately, there are no supernovae visible from the naked eye today. However, Betelgeuse could supernova at any time, and that would be bright enough to see during the day. Stellar classification. Stellar classification is the classification of stars based on their special characteristics. There are a lot of types with different colors, temperatures, and special features. Here's a chart that shows all of that. Cosmic rays. Cosmic rays are super fast particles or particle clusters that constantly bombard Earth at near light speeds. They come from the sun, along with outside of the solar system, from other stars, supernovae, and even other galaxies. Micrometeorites. Micrometeorites are very small meteors that have made it through the Earth's atmosphere without burning up, and are very, very small, usually smaller than a grain of sand. Most micrometeorites will never be found. The Kuiper Belt. The Kuiper Belt is a ring of small, icy objects beyond Neptune's orbit. It reaches out about 55 AU. 1 AU is equivalent to the distance between Earth and the Sun. The Kuiper Belt is home to several dwarf planets, including Pluto, Haumea, Orcus, and Makemake, Pluto being the largest known object in the Kuiper Belt. TV static. The static on your TV is caused by remnants from the Big Bang. When the universe was created, it was all super hot plasma. As the universe expanded, the bright plasma got further and further away. Today, we can see the remnant from that plasma in the form of the cosmic microwave background radiation. The reason it is microwave radiation is because the plasma is coming from such a far distance that it's redshifted to the point of being microwave radiation instead of other types of light. This radiation that comes from the far edges of the universe is picked up by your TV and shows that static on there. The Oort cloud. The Oort cloud is the furthest out reaches of the solar system. It is thought to be spherical in shape and lie 2,000 to 200,000 AU away from the sun. It is thought to be filled with many icy planetesimals, comets, and possibly rocky objects. These objects are thought to be leftovers from the creation of the solar system. Bird legs puffy face. This entry refers to what happens to astronauts when they're in space for a long time. When our bodies don't have gravity like they're used to, blood starts to rush to the head, causing a very similar sensation to when you're hanging upside down. Bird legs puffy face is a term coined by astronauts who have experienced this. Due to the blood rushing to the head, an astronaut's face becomes swollen. These effects only last a couple days until an astronaut's body reaches equilibrium. Corned beef sandwich. On March 23, 1965, NASA pilot John Young smuggled a corned beef sandwich on his mission to space by hiding it in his spacesuit pocket shortly before launch. During the mission, he offered some of the contraband sandwich to his mission commander Gus, who accepted the gift. Fusion. Nuclear fusion is what powers all stars. It is essentially when two atoms are fused together to create a new atom. For example, if you took two hydrogen atoms and fused them together, you would get a helium atom. This is how every single different element is made. All of the iron, gold, oxygen, and everything else on Earth and in you was created inside of stars. Antimatter. Antimatter is essentially a mirror image of normal matter. For every matter particle there's an antimatter counterpart. For example, electrons in matter have a negative charge, but in antimatter they have a positive charge and are called positrons. If matter and antimatter combine, they result in a pure conversion of matter into energy. When the universe was created, massive amounts of matter and antimatter were created. After they all collided and combined, the universe was left with a surplus of matter. Scientists aren't exactly sure why. This is why antimatter is so rare. That remaining matter makes up every single thing we see in the universe. The Fermi paradox. The Fermi paradox is essentially just a question. If the universe is so big and there have been so many chances for life to develop, where is all the life? We have not detected any life besides what we have here on Earth. There are many proposed answers to the Fermi paradox, some of which are deeper down on this iceberg chart. Interstellar journey times. The time it would take to fly a spacecraft from our solar system to another system is crazy long. The nearest star to our system is Proxima Centauri, at a little over 4 light years away. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot in terms of space distances, which it's not. There are plenty of things much further than that. But with our current technology, it would take at least 6,300 years to get to Proxima Centauri. And that is just for the closest star. And even if lightspeed travel ever became possible, it would still take over 4 years to get to the closest star and thousands of years to get to further stars. N1 secret moon rocket. The N-1 rocket was the Soviet Union's version of the Saturn V rocket that took astronauts to the moon. The N-1L3 version was designed directly to compete with the Apollo program. 4 attempts were made to launch the rocket, and they all failed. The N-1 rocket was underfunded and rushed, and the program eventually shut down in 1976. The program was kept a secret from the public until the USSR began to collapse in 1989. Lost cosmonauts conspiracy theory. This theory alleges that the Soviet space program has concealed the deaths of cosmonauts in outer space. The theory argues that the Soviets attempted to launch humans into space before Yuri Gagarin's flight, and they died during the mission. The government of the Soviet Union supposedly suppressed this information to prevent bad publicity during the height of the Cold War. Generally, any evidence of this is regarded as inconclusive. Moondust is dangerous. Not all effects of inhaling moondust are known, but it has been shown that moondust can cause damage to the brain and lung cells after long-term exposure. This is because the lunar dust is more chemically reactive and has larger surface areas composed of sharper, jagged edges than Earth's dust. If the chemical reactive particles are deposited in the lungs, they may cause respiratory disease. No humans have been exposed to moondust long enough to experience these effects. Dark matter. Dark matter is a hypothetical type of matter. It has been estimated that dark matter accounts for about 85% of all matter in the universe. The reason it's called dark matter is because, well, it's dark. It's impossible to see because it doesn't react with light in any way. The only way it can be observed is by the gravitational pull of its mass. Some argue that it simply doesn't exist. Diamond planets. This entry most likely refers to the theory that planets composed primarily of diamonds exist in the universe. A diamond is just carbon that has been put under extreme heat and pressure. Researchers have found that under extreme heat and pressure, materials on carbon-rich planets would become diamonds. After all, diamonds exist on Earth, and there are most definitely planets out there with more heat and pressure than Earth can give. So in theory, a planet made completely of diamonds could and most likely exists somewhere in the universe. Solar sails. A solar sail is essentially a traditional boat sail, but for outer space. Space sails are a form of spacecraft propulsion that uses the radiation pressure from the sun to push a craft. The sun could be replaced by a high-energy laser known as beam sailing. Solar sails have been seen in science fiction, such as Count Dooku's ship from Star Wars: The Clone Wars. The effect that powers solar sails has been proven and must actually be accounted for on normal crafts. A rocket on course to Mars would get pushed thousands of kilometers off course just from the radiation pressure from the sun. Acceleration and gravity equivalence. According to general relativity, inertial force and gravitational force are the same. To explain, the Earth pulls on all objects at the same speed, 9.8 meters per second squared. That is an acceleration speed. That means for every second an object falls on Earth, it accelerates an additional 9.8 meters per second. This is the force of gravity. Now let's imagine you are on a platform in the middle of space away from everything else, and that platform is accelerating upwards at a speed of 9.8 meters per second squared. You would feel the exact same on that platform as you would on Earth. And if you dropped an object on that platform, it would behave exactly the same as it would in Earth's gravity. Ignoring the lack of air, it is exactly the same between gravity and acceleration. Titan lakes. Saturn's largest moon, Titan, has lakes on its surface. But they're probably not what you expect. Instead of being made of water, the huge lakes are made of liquid methane and ethane. These lakes were confirmed by space probe, but had been theorized long before. The temperature on Titan is the perfect temperature for methane to go through a complete water cycle, but replace the water with methane. It evaporates into clouds and rains back down onto the surface. It is the only other celestial body besides Earth known to have this type of liquid cycle. Cosmic inflation. Cosmic inflation is the theory that the early universe expanded exponentially in speed. This rapid expansion happened fractions of a second after the Big Bang. The universe continued to expand after this period of rapid expansion, but at a slower rate. The universe began to accelerate expansion again due to dark energy about 7.7 billion years after the Big Bang, which was 5.4 billion years ago. The flags on the moon are now white. Each of the 6 Apollo missions that landed on the moon planted an American flag in the lunar soil, the oldest of which has been on the moon since Apollo 11 in 1969. It is likely that all of these flags are now completely white. Intense solar rays combined with the lack of atmosphere on the moon has most likely bleached these flags to be completely void of color. It would be cool if someone were to revisit one of the Apollo sites to see if the flag is really white. Wow signal. The WOW signal is an unexplained radio signal detected on August 15, 1977 by Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope in the United States. The signal is believed to have come from outer space in the constellation Sagittarius. It is called the WOW signal because the word WOW was written on the printout next to the characters showing the signal strength over time. Many theories have tried to explain the WOW signal, including various natural and man-made influences, but none of them have been widely accepted as the cause. Many attempts have been made to capture the signal again, but none have been successful. To this day, it remains the strongest candidate for an extraterrestrial radio transmission ever received. MIR incidents. The MIR space station was a precursor to the International Space Station. It was the first modular space station, and it was developed by the Soviet Union. Directly from NASA's website, it says, on February 24, 1997, the 6 crew members aboard the Russian space station MIR faced significant danger when a fire ignited in an oxygen-generating system. The searing flame, lasting several minutes, not only cut off access to one of the 2 Soyuz escape vehicles, but also filled the station's modules with smoke. Although the narrow confines where the fire occurred made fighting it difficult, through teamwork and composure, the crew prevailed and extinguished the flames with no damage to the station's structure. The station's life support systems cleared its atmosphere of the toxic smoke over several hours, with no lasting harm to the crew members. The lessons learned from this incident were passed on in the design and operations of the International Space Station. I hope you guys enjoyed part 1 of this iceberg. There's still a lot to go through in part 2, and that is where stuff starts to get really weird. Let me know your guys' thoughts about any of the topics I've discussed today, and if you have any questions, leave them down below. Also, if I got anything wrong, please tell me in the comments. I'm sure something's wrong on this chart, but I did my best. I hope you guys all learned something new today, and I'll see you all in part 2.